pure love.
Right. Absolutely.
And so I'm seeing this. I do not know how long it continued, but then suddenly I'm seeing the auditorium, and I'm seeing all the people, all the ambassadors. I see us. I see the honor guard, and then that's gone, and then I see our group are in the semicircle and the little dirt contact site there, and then that was over. It was over. So we went back down to the circle and to discuss what had happened. And so Steve asked, what people had seen or whatever, and so I was hesitant to talk about the gold light because it was so incredible. But when I was talking about the event, then I thought, no, I've got to share this because it's so unbelievable, but I've got to share it. And so I said, well, I had a spiritual experience. And Stephen went, yes. And so I knew that it had happened. It was real. And so then I told about it. And so that's what happened with me. It was one of the most incredible things I've ever experienced.
And I actually saw and had described the same ancient being, this really ancient man that I call the Ancient One, is actually what I called him, if you recall. And was having an experience with the same being at the same time that you were experiencing that. And many other people had components of this experience, but according to their own level of consciousness. And what's interesting, fast-forwarding to just a few months ago, is that those of you who have gotten this book I'm talking about and the DVD that goes with it, you'll see that there are these amazing, brilliant objects that flash in from another dimension around us when we're doing this contact work. And the way we do the contact work, those of you who haven't heard this show before, we do have high-powered lasers we send into space, and we have these electronic beeping tones that we send over radio receivers that were recorded in a crop circle, and also one that came to us at Mount Shasta, a very interesting multiphasic tone that we also project out into space. The key component is consciousness, where we, as a group, meditate, go into pure Vedic unbounded consciousness, then remote view deep space or the area where we are and see the ET beings in consciousness. And even if we see them way far in another galaxy, we invite them, and then we zoom into Earth and show, kind of like Google Earth, and show them our exact location mentally and invite them to where we are in a spirit of universal peace and world peace and cosmic awareness. And we do this literally all night, every night that we go out on these expeditions. Well, we were back at this site, Trudy, this summer, in Colorado. And someone had with them, I can't remember who it was, one of our cameras that has a third-generation night vision on a digital camera, which back in the day when this story we're telling you in 98, we didn't have that kind of equipment. It wasn't until 2008, in the fall of 2008 at Shasta, that we finally got this kind of equipment. Well, we just looked last night. Jack Allman, who's a member of our team, is staying at my house this week, and we've been going through the footage, and there, this past year, 2010, up at this exact same site, when we were up there having a very similar experience of contact with these extraterrestrial civilizations and celestial beings, a very spiritual, sacred place. It literally is called, this place that we go to on Blanca Peak is called the Sacred Mountain of the East for the Native American tribes of that part of the United States. And we will be there again in 2011 in June, those of you who want to join us. Well, we look at this video footage, and there against this bush where I was having this experience is a brilliant object that comes in and lights, and it is a CSETI triangle.
Oh, my. Really?
Wait till you see it. You can't believe it. And it's this brilliant white, and it's right there. I mean, it's within feet of where I'm standing.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, it's just unbelievable. And those of you who've seen the video from Shasta from 2008, you will see that on that DVD, it comes with the book when you order it. There is this triangular craft that's in the field with us that blips in a fraction of a second, and then we slow it down so you can see it. And it's 3 points of light that are brilliant white that come in against a bush or a tree that's right near our contact site at Mount Shasta. Well, that exact same object was there at the contact site where this experience that Trudy just described to everyone. It was there just a few months ago when we were up there on Blanca Peak in June of 2010. And we videotaped it. We got it. So that's the sort of thing that's happening, and to sort of make full circle. And, what's exciting about this is that, we've been going out doing this with groups of people since 1992. It's hard for me to believe. I've been doing it for 18 years. And what's exciting is that the senior contact team that consists of people like Dr. Bravo and Dr. Ted Loader and Trudy and Debbie Foch and Linda Willits and myself and Todd and Goldenbaum and Raven Nabulsi and all these people, it's like together we have like 100 years of experience doing this out under the stars, and it just keeps building and building and building and building in terms of what's happening, in terms of the contact. So it is this countdown to transformation. Because as all of you know, if you go to disclosureproject.org, we launched the global disclosure effort. And now disclosure has become a word used in the New York Times and Washington Post, and it's become a mainstream phenomenon. And as recently as a couple weeks ago, the government of New Zealand released all kinds of files and images of contact that they'd had in New Zealand. And this is now happening everywhere, from Denmark to New Zealand, Spain, France, the British government, of course, everywhere but the United States. But the United States and Canada don't want to do it, ironically, even though we live here. But all over the world, Chile, for example, and their Air Force, the Mexican Air Force last year convened a meeting and showed their documents and their jet fighter cameras imaging one of these ET craft. They're in the air, not that far from where we had our contact in Mexico back in the 90s. So this is happening worldwide, and so that's continuing to pick up steam globally, but so is the contact. And so it's sort of like the CSETI triangle, the 3 points to a triangle. One of them is disclosure. One of them is the OrionProject.org, where we're trying to bring out these new energy systems so we can save the environment and get the Earth off of the sort of fossil fuels that are cannibalizing the Earth and keeping so much of the Earth in poverty. And the other is, of course, contact, which is really the base, the tip of the triangle, if you will. It's where all the energy flows to everything else. Because what Trudy and I have experienced as we've gone out all over the world to make contact like this, and Trudy's been with me in Mexico and in England and all over the United States and everywhere, is that the contact is just getting deeper and more profound and more intimate and more proximal. I mean, to the point that a little over a year ago, in November of 2009, we have this extraterrestrial elder from the Andromeda Galaxy that materializes in a photograph 3 feet from our circle at Joshua Tree. And that photograph is up at CSETI.org. It doesn't look very good from a website, but we're getting ready to put out a DVD that has it on it. And when you see it on a high-definition screen, you're going to go, oh, my God. And it's just this amazing being who turns and looks right at the camera, at Raven's camera, and it kind of smiles and has its hand up saying hello. And it is a close encounter of the 5th kind. which is when humans invite the ETs to come, and they do come for the purpose of universal peace. And that's what we're doing. We're just completely bypassing the State Department and the United Nations because none of them want to deal with this issue. And so what's exciting is that people can learn to do this, and they can form their own contact team, no matter where you live, whether you're in South Africa or Poughkeepsie or Phoenix or wherever you, and people have. And we're getting people, as you heard recently, our group up in Montreal that have had just astonishing experience after they just went to a sort of a weekend training workshop with me a couple years ago, and they've just had amazing contact that just keeps escalating in that group. And so what I've said to people is that we're creating this morphogenic field that will transform the whole situation as citizen diplomats making contact in this higher spiritual awareness. And at each of these expeditions, by the way, since we're on the World Puja Network, I mean, I don't talk about this on every radio show, we do the sacred puja in Sanskrit and invite in the ascended masters and the higher consciousness and celestial beings. And one of the things that happened, and I don't, Trudy, you may want to talk about this, what you and Fred saw and had happen at Joshua Tree this year. We went to this site in Joshua Tree National Park just a couple months ago in November, I guess it was, and where we ended up doing a puja at night on this sandy spot that was in this really remote area that was beautiful. And in that area, we heard the crop circle tones that were recorded in 1989. And then we heard other tones that came right into our group that we have recorded that are new, that were these beautiful high-pitched tones that came in a series of beeps. And then on the side between us and out towards where we had done the puja, there was an evening where the entire field was filled with lights and ET beams and spacecraft that you started seeing as soon as we got there. Remember, Trudy?
Yes, absolutely.
And I don't know if you want to describe that, and I want to point out that we actually got this photograph. Some of these are some amazing photographs of this that both Raven and Emery took, and they were using different cameras, but they got the same objects that Trudy and I were seeing and that and Fred was seeing.
One of the, I thought it was remarkable for me. It was Debbie and Deb and I, during the break, we went up the path, and we went quite a distance, and we started seeing all these lights and over all the bushes. They were just covering the bushes out there, thick with bushes.
Yes.
And both sides of the trail, and it was astonishing. There were just little lights just sitting there. There were flashing lights. There were flares of light, and it was alive. I have never been in an area where there was so much of this type of energy lights going on, and I mean it was clear. Anybody could see it. It was nothing that was, if you have a pair of eyes, you would see it. And so we came back, or we started back down the trail to go back to the circle, and we met up with Steve and several other people. And so we told him about this area, so he went up there, and sure enough, and he's looking up there, he's looking up this little hill, and the thing is alive. And I asked him if I could use his night scope, and so I looked at the area that Debbie and I had been looking at, where all the bushes were, and I looked through the night scope, and there were only a few bushes. So, and with our eyes, we were seeing a field filled with these low bushes, but they were not there.
Right. They weren't bushes.
They were not bushes, and so we were seeing ETs in that form. That's how they took that form. But they were letting us know they were there because of the light, all these lights. And that is one of the most, it was stunning. When I looked at the night scopes and I saw there were no bushes, I mean there were a few bushes, but not covered like we had seen before.
Right, and what